So, Mr. Logan, could I have you introduce yourself briefly?
Sure, my name's Sean Logan.
Okay, very good. What do you do for a living? Are you retired?
I'm actually retired, retired in December of 2015.
And before that, you worked for the Helena Fire Department?
Yes, I was hired in 1996 as a firefighter, worked my way through the ranks, and finished up my career as fire chief.
Mm-hmm. How long were you chief?
3 years.
Okay. How long have you been in Helena?
A lifelong resident of Helena, actually.
And is this your first time for running for elective office?
It's my very first shot at politics, yes.
Very good. So why did you decide to run for this position?
Well, I think, broadly, as I said a minute ago, I'm a lifelong resident of Helena, and Helena raised me. And I feel very fortunate to have been raised here and to have lived and worked in Helena. And I was lucky enough to serve in a career here in Helena that I recently finished about a year ago. And it was with the Helena Fire Department. And so that was a very intrinsically rewarding career from the standpoint of, it's all about public service. And so the Helena City Commission I see as an extension of that public service.
Very good. What do you see as your qualifications for City Commission?
Well, I think I bring some interesting qualifications to the table. As I've mentioned a couple times here, I served with the Helena Fire Department for 20 years and as both a firefighter and a fire chief. And so that gave me a lot of very street level understanding of what it's like to deliver services to our community, not only to residents but also to businesses. So I feel like I have a very good understanding of service delivery to Helenans. And as fire chief in leading the department, I had to set budgets. I had to work with other agency leaders, whether it was within the city or public safety agencies around us, and so I have established a lot of trusted relationships with those folks, and in addition to that, a lot of engagement with residents within Helena and with businesses that the department had to deal with. So I have a very good understanding of how all those work together.
Mm-hmm. What do you see as the number one issue facing the city going forward?
Well, I think the number one issue really is that we have a lot of needs that, in my opinion, have sort of been put on the back burner for several decades. I can give you a few examples of those that I have direct knowledge of. For example, our police and fire departments. I've watched them over the course of my career and after. The reality is they haven't grown significantly in terms of staffing, and yet in those 20-some years, the demand that's been put on them by our community has more than doubled. I've also, watched, and so that's really a pretty significant problem for Helena. And I've watched, there was a decade recently, let's say in the late 90s to on into the 2000s, where our street and utilities infrastructure didn't receive any rate increases or any investments, and that's put us in a shortfall of well over $100 million in those infrastructure needs. So that's a big challenge. And then as I've been campaigning, one of the things that I've heard not only from residents but also from particularly from the business sector in terms of economic development, is that Helena is not the easiest place to deal with. And a lot of business and economic activity has been driven out in the county or to other municipalities across Montana. And for Helena to be an economically viable place to live and work into the future, I think we've got to change that. And so those needs, I think, I can't give you one big issue that I think is the one to address. There's a number of them that we've got to tackle.
You alluded to it a little bit, but how satisfied are you with the services being provided by the city right now, and where do you think improvements need to be made?
Well, I think we've got a very dedicated staff from the leadership on down, and I think the service delivery from those essential services is as good as it can be given the staffing and resources that they have to work with. So the next question was?
Where do you think there need to be improvements?
Yeah, I think to start, some of the challenges that I mentioned previously, I don't think the average Helenan knows are problems within Helena, and I think the commission could do a far better job of raising awareness of, the growth of Helena and the municipality itself struggling to grow with it.
Very good. Overall, what do you feel city government is currently doing well, and what do you think they could do better?
Well, as I said, I think we have very dedicated staff. I think, as I mentioned earlier, one of the challenges that we have is I think trying to engage the business community more collaboratively, more effectively, to turn around the idea of, instead of driving business out into the county or into other municipalities within the state, that the leadership and staff within Helena could work with the business community to bring them in and help economically, help with the economic development of our community.
Mm-hmm. Are there any issues that you don't believe have gotten enough attention from the City Commission over the past few years?
Well, I think I mentioned them early on. I think just those essentials that municipal governments are responsible for, essential services, infrastructure, economic development, in my opinion, haven't gotten enough attention from our commission. We've raised a lot of awareness recently about a lot of issues. A mine in Mark County, opening relations with Cuba, for example. Those are a couple of things that our commission has tried to raise awareness about for our community. And I think if we're going to raise awareness, it needs to be about issues directly that the city is directly responsible for.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's something that you alluded to just in that last response, but I was going to ask as well. From a philosophical perspective, what do you think the role of the city government ought to be?
From a philosophical standpoint, I think we need to make sure that our general fund departments, our essential services, are adequately staffed, that they have the resources that they need to do the services that citizens need. I think we need to make sure that we are responsibly taking care of our infrastructure, our streets, and our utilities, that they are being maintained responsibly and replaced where necessary. And again, I think we really need to do a better job of working with the business sector to bring economic development to Helena.
Several of the candidates in this year's election are running officially more or less as slates with other candidates. Are you running together with any of the other candidates in this race?
No.
Okay. Is it not true, though, that you have said on your social media that you're more or less supporting Mark Brzezinski?
Yeah, Mark Brzezinski, as I met him a couple of months ago, and as I got to know him, the truth is we have a lot in common. Some of the things that are important to each of us, I mean, we have those things in common, but there's not a concerted effort to run as a slate.
I see.
Per se. It's just we've got a lot in common.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Well, that's about all I have. What message would you like to leave voters with as they make their decision? The important thing is to vote. There's as I've observed municipal government and municipal elections over a couple of decades or more, actually, one of the things that's clear is municipal elections have not typically been well participated in by the electorate or by the citizens of Helena, and just get out and vote. I think you're going to have a pretty clear understanding as the campaign marches on what the various candidates stand for, and get out and vote for who you think will do the best job.
All right, very good, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.